Welcome to Talk Fights. I'm Curtis Biggs. Today I have a guest from the boxing world in amateur standout, Devin Gibson. Devin, how many amateur fights did you have in boxing?
Thanks for having me on.
Of course, no problem.
I had 41 amateur boxing fights, 3 amateur MMA fights.
Nice.
Wrestled for a little bit in high school as well, too.
Yeah, sweet. How many wrestling matches did you have?
Wrestling, I would have wrestled for about a year and a half. I think probably close to 30.
Really?
Maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty fast paced. Like we do like four matches a tournament.
Nice.
Quite a few tournaments. Like when I was wrestling, I was at St. Clair, so Clarky, who was our coach at that time, he kept us real busy.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you're very well rounded. I'm sure you like to think.
I'd like to think until I started getting smothered in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's a different world.
It's completely different when it was going to the MMA world and you're like, all right, I just want to bang.
Yeah, no doubt. So speaking of boxing, you've recently tried to turn professional in boxing and had some difficulties therein.
Yeah, so I got my license in Ontario and my license in Alabama. I reached out to several promoters, probably over 100 promoters, trying to over the last 6 months trying to figure out fights. I eventually got in touch with great promoter Brandy McCain in Alabama. She kind of taught me the ropes of like how everything was going to work and set me up with a fight. I was originally supposed to fight where the guy was from actually, but I was originally supposed to fight somebody who ended up getting suspended the week before.
Right.
So last minute they found me a replacement.
Right.
And I was able to go down and figure it out from there, but there was more complications once we got down there.
So because of the pandemic and everything else going on, you had to spend some time in Alabama, correct? You had to spend some time there before you were able to get this fight going. Is that correct?
Actually, no. Like it was recommended at that time, like you do 7 days, but they had just taken down their quarantine requirements.
Okay.
And even the masks, like they're fully open now.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, they're fully open. So it was once you got there, they 2 weeks from that date, I think it was, that the mask would be off, everything would be off, and they went down. They just had the Bkfc 17 there. Pretty big crowd. It was great fights. It was 10 out of 10 knockouts.
Crazy.
As I mentioned earlier, it was
awesome.
It was their first card there, and that was the first time that they ever had knockouts in every single fight in Bkfc.
Nice.
Too, so.
Right on. Very cool. So, so you didn't get that professional boxing match. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I think I heard that you made some connections while you're there, and you may be looking into something else.
Yeah. So the whole I'm gonna rewind real quick. Like the whole story as far as like getting down to Alabama, like training throughout the pandemic, like with Tim Tanner, we were basically training like Rocky IV.
Sure.
Like where we were
in the mountains,
separated,
lifting logs, chopping trees.
It was winter as well, so it was it was tough. Like it was really tough. Like it was like finding anything like to feel like, hey, I'm ready for an elite level fight.
Sure.
So we went through all that. I went through my I told you earlier, like I had a few injuries throughout it. I had a shoulder injury after one of my sparring, like about 6 weeks out. Luckily, that went away after about a week. But the biggest injury was hamstring and lower back injury.
Okay.
So when I was trying to work through that, it was like I couldn't even, for the last 4 weeks of my training camp, I couldn't run.
Right.
I was doing everything on the assault bike, trying to keep my cardio up in different ways that I've never been used to, and it actually made me a little bit stronger.
Nice.
I went to Bobby Joe and Nick to fix me up for the fight, and I honestly did not have high hopes that I was going to be 100%.
Right.
But they fixed me up completely. Got me back down there, and the week of the fight, I felt better than ever. I had to, before the fight, I had to get my COVID testing done. I had to book book everything where I had to actually stay down in Toronto because I needed the fast track COVID testing,
Right.
which had to be within 3 days.
Sure.
So I had to be down there early. I had to get down to the fights, and once I got down to the fights, we had to do COVID testing at the weigh-ins.
Which,
and then,
in the throat or in the nose?
it was in. I've never done the throat. I've done bullies in the nose, but the fast rapid is what it's called. The rapid COVID testing is a little easier, where they do both sides, but it doesn't go. It doesn't feel like it's shooting up in your brain.
I had the nose one done once. It wasn't very fun.
No, if you're doing the one side, and it's like the one that takes a little longer for results, and they put it up really far, and it's terrible.
Yes, it was.
This one, they kind of circle around for 10 seconds on each side, but it doesn't go up as far. It still makes your eyes water, but it's not like, what is happening? Right? That kind of thing. But
when I got mine done, the nurse that did it, it said it's gonna feel like getting water up your nose.
Yeah.
And it did, and I don't like getting water up my nose. It was no fun at all.
No,
but you got to do what you got to do to get in there, right? You jump through all the hoops, try to make this fight happen.
Well, yeah, and then once we were down there, we were at the weigh-ins. She pulls me aside. She goes, "Devin, you're really not gonna like this." This was the second fight.
Right.
So the first guy pulled out because of a suspension he wasn't aware about.
Right.
Pulls me down there. She goes, "Devin, you're really not gonna like this." I don't want to go too much into detail because it's pretty personal for him, but he lost a family member the night before.
Okay.
In a pretty tragic way.
Sure. So wasn't able to
So
compete.
I was like, you know what? I was like, Brandy, I'm like, I want to be angry, but I can't.
Right.
I'm like, she's like, we're going to work really hard to get you something.
Yep.
So I said, okay, sounds good. They got a guy from North Carolina, DeJure Bernie, who was supposed to fight me. They had the flights ready. They said he's going to come in the morning after. He's going to weigh in the morning of the fight. We'll call you down to meet us down at the weigh-in so you can monitor it. I'm like, sounds good. Okay, I'll get rest. I'll treat everything like everything's all good.
Sure.
Wake up the next morning. They go, Devin, I'm like speechless right now. Bernie didn't board his plane. He got dropped off at the airport and took a cab home.
Oh no.
It was like devastated. I tried to find anybody who would give me their match on the card. Be like, I'm all the way down here from Canada.
Right.
Like I'll pay you for your fighter. I'll do this. I just wanted to fight.
Sure.
Didn't happen.
Jeez.
I was a little upset with myself because it was like Roy Jones Jr. was in the house that night.
Oh no.
And I ended up just sitting there with a box of pizza in my bed, grumpy all night, and didn't go to the show. But it is.
It would have been something to fight in front of Roy Jones Jr. Put on a show and maybe get to get a picture with him afterwards or something.
And that's kind of where I was at with it. It was when I was laying there. I was like, Tim was telling me, he's like, Devin, you should go anyways. Like Roy Jones Jr. is my favorite boxer of all time. He's like, go to the fight, meet him. I'm like, Tim, I was supposed to fight in front of Roy Jones Jr. for my debut. I don't want to go as a fan.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I sat there and I do regret it a little bit, but at the same time I had a good pizza that night.
Yeah, there you go. That's something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. The glass is half full.
Yeah. So that didn't happen. But to answer your question before, it was they ended up driving me back to the airport the next morning, and Brandy and her husband were real busy, obviously with like post show stuff. So they had someone from their gym, Faith, drive me down.
Okay.
And Faith was friends with this girl Sonia, who she just signed with BareKnuckle Management.
Right.
And she said, hey, I can get you in touch with her if you want to explore that, because I mentioned my interest in it.
Sure.
And yeah, one thing led to another, and Sonia got back to me, messaged Jules with BareKnuckle Management. She's the VP.
Right.
For there, and we started talking about my career, my amateur career so far, what happened in Alabama, kind of what I was looking for, and weight class, obviously, and eventually, so probably about 2 weeks after that, I ended up signing with her.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So you've signed with a BareKnuckle Management company. That's ultra exciting. Bare knuckle is really blowing up right now. Like, people are really into it. Now, it's very bloody and it looks pretty brutal, but a lot of people have said that bare knuckle can actually be safer than traditional boxing. What do you think about that?
I actually had this debate with, or not debate, I guess. Tim, we were talking on the weekend, and he said or we were looking at the knockouts. It was all first round knockouts
Right.
for the first like 3 or 4 fights. He's like, a lot of concussions, and I said that. I said actually they say like there's quite a few less concussions in bare knuckle boxing than there is in comparison to professional boxing,
Sure.
amateur boxing with the headgear.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree. The big knockout looks bad. You know, boom, the guy gets knocked out and he's sleeping on the floor and it looks horrible. There's blood leaking out of his mouth. It looks like, geez, that guy must have got really hurt. But it's not so much the big knockout, the 1 or 2 big punches. It's the sustained beating over the course of an entire fight. Exactly, the accumulation. And that really does the damage. These guys are getting concussions in the first or second or third round, but are able to continue fighting through to the 10th round, to the 12th round, and the brain just keeps taking that punishment, and it does a lot of damage. Now, there's an argument there. I mean, bare knuckle, again, the blood, because these guys' bare knuckle cuts are very much more common than in your traditional boxing where the gloves. The gloves are generally there to protect your hands in boxing, much more so than the face. It's to prevent cuts and protect the hands. Bare knuckle boxing takes it away, so the cuts are, you see them very often, I find.
I noticed, especially with the last card, they compared to when Artem Lobov and Jason Knight were fighting, and they were posting those pictures up. It was
brutal.
Like Bkfc 5, I think.
Okay, maybe.
And they're posting their pictures afterwards, and Artem Lobov's face out here. They got cuts everywhere,
No doubt.
stitched up. I noticed they're stopping fights either a lot quicker off of cuts. They did have one. I think the doctors are just in general better.
Sure.
I don't know if they're the same doctors or if they switched them up, but it seems like the fights are. They're looking at the cuts a lot better now.
Yeah, well, they have to. I mean, guy gets blood in his eyes and you can't see, you can't defend yourself, you can't fight. You can't see the fight is over. And those cuts over the eyebrows and the top of the head, the blood runs into the eyes and the fight's over, right? Maybe over a little sooner than you'd think. But again, this person's not able to defend themselves. It prevents them from taking that further punishment for the duration of the fight.
Yeah, and I think it's like Nate Diaz, like that fight that got stopped with him and Jorge Masvidal.
Right.
I think it's like any time like the fight's under the cuts under the eyebrow.
Yep.
That's where the danger
Definitely
starts happening. It's like you get the borderline and up here, and it's like.
Sometimes it'll bleed off to the side, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, under the eyebrow, you're done basically. Right? The fight's over.
It's not worth losing an eye.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Or the punishment again, you can't see. You can't see those punches coming. You're just not able to properly defend yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, bare knuckle boxing is very exciting. I mean, the extra blood and the big knots these guys get in the face and the bruises, whether safe or not, it's very exciting. The blood is what a lot of people tune in to see.
Yeah, it's like there was quite a bit on the weekend.
Yeah,
that's for
absolutely.
Sure. There was quite a bit of blood, quite a bit of knockouts. It's the fastest growing combat sport out there right now. It's like the oldest, if not one of the oldest combat sports ever.
No doubt. Well, people are punching each other with bare knuckle before they're punching each other with gloves.
I've seen I follow a lot of the UK pages that post a lot of historical stuff about bare knuckle boxing. And,
Okay.
I don't know the two names, but there was the longest recorded fight ever, which was like 111 rounds or something.
Okay.
To the point that they both could not get off, or they stopped the fight because they couldn't basically get off their stool.
Right. They're there after 111 rounds. It's
Yeah.
pretty wild. Yeah, it was a different time back then, the way those
Yeah.
guys would fight. But the style of bare knuckle nowadays, I find, is very different than you see those old black and white films of the bare knuckle boxers kind of doing this or whatever. And they don't throw a lot of punches. They're protecting their hands. They're more worried about defense and use those hands as defense rather than as an offensive tool like we're seeing the nowadays bare knuckle boxers do.
Yeah.
They're very aggressive. They're boxing in a way very similar to traditional boxing, but without the gloves. It's good. It's an excellent sport. As you said, one of the fastest growing combat sports in the world.
Honestly, I was talking to my grandmother about this like the other day. I'm like, it's wild. I think, like, 1800s, I think, was the last time it was legal in the States.
Sure.
And for us to be in our 20s right now, growing up in the time that bare knuckle boxing comes back, it's like, come on. It's like, it's a calling. It's like,
it's
you got to do it.
Age.
It's like we're so fortunate where it's like, you're like, hey, that style fits exactly how I fight.
Yep.
This is what I need to do. I can't believe this is here for the first time in 150 years. Like,
crazy. Need to be a part of it, eh?
Yeah.
So what weight class are you hoping to fight at?
125 and under.
125 and under.
They
Awesome.
they just opened up their couple new divisions, I think, and 125 and under was one of them.
Yeah. What weight did you fight at predominantly as an amateur boxer?
Most of my accomplishments were either at 114 or 123.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
When I was fighting MMA, I was up at 135. But I feel my best usually when I'm down at 125.
Cool. So you'd be right in there for boxing. That's perfect.
Yeah, that was the other thing with Alabama. It was like getting down to Alabama. Making weight was the big thing. Like, I didn't know if I could make weight. I've been out of boxing 7 years, out of MMA for 4 years.
Right.
So when I told my buddy Josh at the gym, I was like, hey, came into the gym probably about a year ago at 170 pounds, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna fight at 125 pounds. He's like, no, Ben, like, you're not cutting to 125 pounds.
Right.
Like, you did that as a kid, you're not doing it now. And I'm like, man, I'm cutting to 125 pounds.
No, right on.
And I got down, I felt so strong as I ever have at that weight.
Yeah.
Now, and it's because of the stuff me and Tim have been doing. It's been building a lot of muscle, but cutting out a lot of my my fat and just keep my strength up, cut my running down. Like, when I was younger, I'd run 10 to 15 kilometers a day, every day.
Wow.
Now I cut that back to maybe 5 and hit the bike or work on strength.
Okay.
And coming in on the scale, like, and actually making weight was an achievement, of its own. And I feel like I looked a lot bigger than I looked when I was 19.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So as you mentioned, your trainer is Tim Tanner. What kind of a trainer would you say that Tim is?
Tim is the most selfless trainer you could possibly have.
Perfect.
He's the type that he'll want to do more. He'll be like, all right, we got this schedule, and then he'll text you at odd hours, being like, hey, like, you want to get some work in.
Nice.
And it's either you can or you can't at that point. But
sure.
He'll travel down with me. He's not interested in being in it for the financial part. He does it just because he loves me.
Yeah.
And Tim's an all-around great guy. He's struggling a little bit with Ironworks right now, and trying to find his places and trying to work it with his own clients.
Sure.
That he has there, but it's even throughout all of that, his main focus has been on me. So yeah,
awesome.
Tim's just a really great person, really great
sweet.
trainer. Yeah.
Good to hear. How many years you been working with Tim?
Oh, since I was a kid. We did take some time off because I took time off from fighting when I had my son.
Right.
And when I was away from town. But as a kid, I probably trained with Tim up until I was like 17 or 18.
Okay, nice.
So I was probably 12 until 17, maybe.
Sure.
So I would have been 5 years there, and then I reached out to him saying, because my old coach Wade Fleming, he's at about 15 hours now. I still talk to him every day.
Right on.
He's still my mentor. I still have him in my corner at fights in the States.
Awesome.
But he's out there, so when I was trying to look for more one-on-one stuff, because Blue Water has a lot of coaches, but we've got a lot of contestants there, so when I was looking for more one-on-one stuff, the first name that I could think of was Tim, and I was so happy that I reached out to him, and we were able to start something up. Yeah.
Well, you guys have a long history together, right? That's perfect. I'm glad you guys were able to work that out.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's going well.
Thanks.
Do you have an opponent you've possibly heard of for your bare knuckle debut?
Okay, so yeah, so BareKnuckle Management, they when I signed with them, now basically their job is, hey, we're gonna go out and talk to several organizations and figure out where we can match you, figure out what the best match is, how much money we can make you, what sponsors we can get you.
Right.
So my ultimate goal, like with them talking to these organizations, my ultimate goal is to fight for Bkfc.
Sure.
And I think that's a realistic goal.
Yep.
With my boxing background, I think it's realistic with the people that I've seen fighting in the Bkfc.
Right.
So that's where I'm. That's the direction I'm leaning towards right now. My next step is I'm gonna display my talents to the matchmakers and the owner, founder of Bkfc. See if they like what they see,
yep.
and at that point, hopefully they can make a match.
Awesome.
No date, no opponent yet.
Yep.
But they did give me a couple names that they were looking at for 125ers that might come into the Bkfc now that it's a new open weight class.
Sure.
I looked up a few of those guys. I think I could handle those guys pretty well.
Nice.
And most of them, because they do say like right now 70% of Bkfc is MMA fighters, 30% is boxers.
Right.
So most of the names that I've gotten are predominantly MMA guys.
Sure.
And I'm a dirty boxer myself. Like I've never been, I've done well in Olympic style boxing, but I've
yep.
never been an Olympic style boxer.
Right.
I've been the guy to get in on the inside, grab arms, work my head on the inside, and pick the shots from the inside. That's how I fight a lot of the time. So
yep.
switching over to this, I don't see a lot of those MMA guys getting the better of me in the clinch. I fought MMA too, where I've used the small MMA gloves, so I know the angles that I'm coming at without the big gloves
sure.
on.
Definitely.
But yeah, as far as names, there was one in particular. He fought at 115 pounds, so it would be on the terms, I guess, that he would either want to come up or we would be able to agree to a catch weight. But Nico Hernandez,
okay.
He's an Olympic bronze medalist.
Wow.
He fought in the Bkfc recently in October, I believe, against an MMA guy.
Yep.
And he transitioned, like his class showed, like
sure.
he was outboxing the guy, but you could tell that the dirty boxing, clinch work,
right. It was a little foreign.
Kind of made it closer rounds than it would have been.
Sure, sure.
Have it not
just
been
a straight
that
boxing
sport.
Man. Sure.
So I think that would work well for me, and I think we're the two most high class boxers around that weight right now.
Mm-hmm.
In there, and I think my dirty boxing and my size and my strength, I think will all tie into it, and I think that would be the perfect match if they're interested in it. And
yep. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, to have an Olympic bronze medalist in your bare knuckle debut, that'd be an excellent fight. I mean, who wouldn't want to tune in and see that? Right? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Hopefully that works out. So going back to your amateur boxing career, you said you had 41 bouts?
41 bouts.
41 bouts. Yeah. Was there a certain bout you consider your greatest moment, your greatest achievement in boxing?
Yeah, there were a few fights. I'd say my greatest achievement would have been, I obviously like winning Ontario's, getting gold, getting
sure.
I had the best male boxer,
nice.
like a tournament award at that.
Nice.
That was a great moment. There was a few fights that, my great moments are like great fights. Like I fought against my buddy Rodolfo twice.
Okay.
And Rodolfo was multiple national champion, and we beat the crap out of each other.
Nice.
So like fights like that, I have great achievements and great moments, but
yep.
my favorite moments when I look back at my boxing career are the times when I'm sitting there smiling at one of my best friends across the ring and
pounding
beating the shit out of
awesome.
each other. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Did you ever have a fight that you felt like you were quite behind and you were able to pull it out in the end and come back and take the win?
Actually, there's one that there's been multiple times like where I've had that where I've been down in the first round, I've come back, but my biggest comeback would have been I went down to the 2011 Ringside World Championships. I fought my first fight, trained really hard, fought against a guy, Joshua Roman.
Okay.
He outclassed me for 3 rounds. Left, trained for a year, was like, you know what, next year I want to go back to the Ringside World Championships. I got there, same weight class. I was like, all right, well, let's see, like maybe I'll get somebody that I can fight and we'll see how this tournament goes.
Right.
I get Joshua Roman in the first fight again. I'm like, we just traveled down to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Second year in a row, and I pulled the same guy. I went outclassed him completely.
Nice.
And that was my biggest comeback where I was like, I was proud. I was like, this is a year of work.
Absolutely.
Right now went into this, and I ended up getting 3rd place at the tournament too, beating another guy, having a split decision loss in the semifinals too.
Okay, sweet.
So
real sweet. Does anyone stand out as having hit you the hardest in your career, whether in sparring or in a fight?
My last boxing match I ever had.
Really?
Justin Hocko.
Okay, Justin Hocko. I know the name.
Remember? Yeah.
No name.
Yeah, that was. He was a little heavier than me when we went in there, but that was. He had some heavy hands, and everybody in Ontario knows it.
Oh yeah. Oh jeez.
So,
and he caught you a couple good ones.
He got me good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it happens, right? It's all part of the fun.
Yeah, it's part of growing, and I did learn a lot from that fight, and I did come in quite a bit smaller than he did when we did fight, but I should say, yeah, Justin Hogg was my hardest hitter that I fought.
Right.
2 hardest hitters recently I sparred was Spencer Wilcox.
No name. He's a professional boxer, is he not?
No, he's the young one who's trying to make the Olympics.
Okay.
His brothers are all the professionals,
okay.
the other ones.
Cool.
Spencer hits really hard. He's really strong, hits really hard, moves really well. And then I've sparred Steve Molitor when I was younger.
Yeah, how did that go?
And Steve, like his body shots were nasty.
I bet.
He threw a left hook. I couldn't hear out of my ear for 2 weeks.
Oh no.
Steve Molitor probably out of everybody, obviously.
Right.
Hit harder than anybody.
Well,
and he's not even. That's the thing. He's not even known for his knockouts in his professional career. He's known for outclassing guys.
He does have quite a few knockouts. So for a weight class that doesn't see a lot of knockouts, I can't remember. I couldn't tell you how many, but
a lot of the
quite a few. It's a very tough guys.
A lot of the Canadians, he was knocking out a lot of the Canadian guys around here.
We knocked out Scotty Olsen for the Canadian Championship as a professional. Scotty Olsen was a legend. Knocked out Taklani Vlovu. Knocked out Michael Hunter for the World Championship. Steve Molitor was a hitter for sure.
Yeah.
And a 2-time world champion. Very few Canadians could ever had that could say that. Well, that's very, very cool. Now going into bare knuckle, is there any specific things you've changed in your training versus normal boxing?
Pretty much, yeah. That we've been working on power. But the biggest thing that Tim wants to work on especially is my clinch work.
Yep, no doubt.
I think I do feel very comfortable on the inside.
Right.
But I think you get a strong clincher who's controlling you.
Sure.
Around there, you need to know how to defend it. You need to know how to do it yourself. Like if.
Absolutely.
Because they'll let you work, like in bare knuckle boxing, you grab that neck and you're throwing, they'll let you do that the entire fight as long as you're working.
Right.
So it's not Olympic style boxing.
No, absolutely.
It's going to be a change.
Sport.
And that's what they say. Like even with Paige Van Zandt losing her debut, they say, and she looked a lot more comfortable by the 4th and 5th round.
Right.
They say, you go in, you don't know what it's going to be like until that bell rings.
Sure.
It's a different sport.
Definitely. So I have one last question for you. What's worse, a punch in the nose or a punch in the liver?
Liver. 100%.
Absolutely. Cheers, buddy. Thanks very much for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Awesome. See you at the fights. Alright.
Yeah, secret power.
My secret power is fatness.
I knew that was a secret.
You knew it. Oh! Throwing gloves. Dirty pool.